Hello and welcome to another episode of RallySport Magazine's Special Stage podcast. It's episode 10. There's lots to talk about. Peter Whitten, welcome along.
G'day, Luke. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you. The weather's getting a little bit colder where we are here in northeast Victoria, but that sort of means that rally's a bit more pleasant to go to. You can rug up and really get into it, can't you?
You sure can, and certainly the night events, and the one that we're probably going to be at next is the Nissan Night Moves over in the forest outside Heathcote, and we generally sit out there on a road closure and get the campfire going and the sausages sizzling, and it's a fantastic night.
Nothing quite like night rallying, is there? I was speaking to Max McRae, who's coming up a bit later in the podcast, and he's doing his first night rally this weekend, in fact. So it's a part of the sport that's not really as prevalent as what it was back when you were starting, Peter, but it's still there in parts.
Yeah, and obviously in club rallying, it's more prevalent than it is in state championship or national events. But as you say, Luke, I mean, there's nothing quite like sitting in the forest on a dark night and you hear the sound of the engine running and coming towards you, and then the flash of the lights, and as the car sort of winds its way towards you. And yeah, it's a great part of the sport, and hopefully that can remain for a long time.
Lots to come in this episode of the podcast. We'll talk about the Forest Rally. We've got some stuff about the control tyre tender for the Australian Rally Championship. As I mentioned, the ERC and Max McRae's interviews coming up as well. So we'll get right into it. The Forest Rally. Peter, you had some comments with regards to Harry Bates in the lead up to the event, which you asked the question whether he lost his mojo. It got some traction everywhere on social media, on the TV coverage. You discussed at length in that article the facts that made you believe that he hadn't lost his mojo. You actually thought he was going to win the rally and that he hadn't lost his mojo. By simply asking that question, it blew up on social media, mostly by people commenting who hadn't read the article. So did you want to explain, I guess, your point?
Yeah, most of the people who were commenting, I guess, against the article, we sort of looked into it, and most of them weren't subscribers and haven't actually read the article. It's probably worth mentioning here that I had a chat with Harry Bates after the article came out, and he mentioned to me that it was well balanced and factual and everything that he would expect from us as journalists. So he certainly had no objection with the article at all. And in relation to that, I'm going to have a chat with Harry in the next couple of days and do a bit of a feature article on him and where he's at the moment and some of the challenges that he's had over the past 6 months of his rallying. So it'll be great to see. But I think, as we said, most of the people who were commenting weren't subscribers. And okay, we understand that not everybody is in a position to subscribe to the RallySport Magazine website. But as a business ourselves, that's the only way we can continue to produce the stories and the articles that we do. So, yeah, we just encourage people that aren't on board yet to sign up. It's only about $7 a month. And yeah, jump on and read all the articles, and then you'll be much more informed than what you would be otherwise.
I love the discussion and the debate around the sport. I really enjoy the comments and stuff and the opinion that people have on WRC pages and on Dirtfish and those kinds of websites. I think that's a part of rallying in Australia that we're lacking. We're lacking genuine discussion and clear and relevant points about this driver and that driver. And at the end of the day, it's the Australian Rally Championship. So I think you having an opinion, Peter, and if it's me who's having that opinion or if it's Joe Blow down the street, I think it's important that we can generate that discussion in a way that's good for the sport and that is well balanced and is based on fact and all the things that you did for that article. So I want to encourage people to comment on the sport and really give their points of view. And I think you would be the same in that vein.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the I don't know whether you call it a problem or not, but one of the things that we have in Australia and I guess in New Zealand and in other small countries as well is that we're a relatively small sport and most people know each other. So when there's an article written about Harry Bates or whoever it might be, there's so many people out there that know them personally as friends or as acquaintances, and it's very easy to get your back up and take offence at what might be written by a journalist, even if you have or haven't read the article. So we just need to calm our views a little bit on social media, I think. But as you say, we do encourage the comments from people, but certainly make sure that they're not personal attacks or anything like that, because everybody's a human being sitting there looking at their computer, and whether it's about you or about somebody else, somebody can take offence.
forward to the Forest Rally, in which Harry Bates was the dominant man in the event. It was great to see him back at the front. He didn't have any mechanical issues. He didn't put it off the road like he's done in the last couple of events. It was a really, really great event for him until that unfortunate penalty that put him down the order. It got Nathan Quinn up into the top position, and Lewis Bates was in second position. I followed it pretty closely, and I think you did as well, Peter. It was really cool to follow along.
It was, yeah, and certainly Harry was in dominant form on the Saturday, and I guess on the Sunday as well. I mean, he was clearly the fastest guy in the quickest car over the weekend. Really good to see him with a smile on his face on Saturday afternoon at the end of the stages. Of course, it didn't go his way, and he had a penalty from booking into control a minute early, which eventually cost him the victory and allowed Nathan Quinn to win. But it was good to see his domination back. But plenty of other really good performances. Nathan, obviously, he had some turbo issues on the first day in his Hyundai, came back and drove really well again. And Lewis Bates, once again, who's continued his dominant form from last year. I'm sure he wasn't the fastest on the weekend, but he just keeps accumulating points again.
Yeah, he sure does. His speed has increased rapidly. It's like he's got a shot in the arm of confidence after winning the championship, and he's shown in the first couple of rounds this year that he can really up his pace. And in a way, in that 2018, 2019 sort of time when he was up and coming and first getting into cars in the same specification as Harry, people really thought, wow, Lewis is going to eclipse Harry, and it hasn't happened as yet. And maybe the confidence is there now that he's over the hump in terms of getting a title, that, he's more confident to push the limits of him and the car.
I think you're right. And Lewis had a couple of incidents in the car in the first 2 or 3 seasons when he was with the team. And sure, that dents your confidence. From an outsider's point of view, there was always talk in the early days that Lewis was perhaps more talented than Harry and that he was going to go further than Harry did. Of course, that hasn't been the case at this stage, but who's to say that won't happen in the future? And his confidence and his speed is getting quicker. And Nathan Quinn mentioned that to me earlier in the week when I spoke to him, that Lewis's pace now compared to 12 months ago is really chalk and cheese.
Lewis leads the title by 10 points over Nathan Quinn, and Harry is 32 points behind his brother. So 32 points, although it's more than half a heat win, it's much closer than what Harry might have thought after the penalty, because he dropped down to 8th after the penalty and then managed to claw his way back together and get up to 6th position. So 32 points, it's a little bit of a gap, but he's still in 3rd position. So there's a lot of rallying to come this year.
Yeah, that's true, Luke. And I think what we need to bear in mind there is obviously competitors drop their worst round from the season. So whether that be Tasmania or whether it be some other event that Harry has to drop the points, 32 points, he's in 3rd at the moment, but maybe it's not as bad as it perhaps seems. Personally, I think maybe the dropping around thing needs to be looked at down the track. That's a discussion for another day, but whether that needs to take place in the outright classes, I'm not sure. But as you say, 3rd place for Harry. Quinny's in 2nd place. He mentioned that it was a little bit of a hollow win. He knew that he wasn't the fastest man on the weekend in Western Australia, but you've got to be there at the end, and congratulations to him.
Eddie Maguire's pace was also very impressive in the ex-Molly Taylor Subaru. He's been hinting to you, Peter, initially via some articles on our website about bringing in a Rally 2 car. He said it again at the weekend, so must be only a matter of time until he hits go on that R5 car.
You'd have to think so, yeah. And I mean, Eddie's pace was phenomenal. He was far and away the quickest of the production cars in a car that he'd never driven before. And I think it's clear that he's got the speed, and those with an eagle eye may have seen on social media in the week leading up to the Forest Rally that he did have a drive of one of Luke Annier's Fiesta R5 cars, and his comments from driving that were quite phenomenal. So, yeah, let's hope that it is for the next event in Rally Queensland that we see him in an R5 or a Rally 2 car, and then next year with his brother Stephen, hopefully moving from his Mitsubishi Lancer into an R5 as well.
Alex Rouleau had a tough weekend. He grabbed a stage win on the Bunbury Super Special stage, which was a great spectacle again in Bunbury. It was really good last year, and I think they stepped it up again this year. Unfortunately, the dust was a problem, so they had to can one of the runnings through that stage. But another stage winner in the ARC, Luke Annear and Bodie Reading got their first one in Launceston. I think Eddie Maguire also got a stage win in Launceston. Alex Rouleau in the Forest Rally. We're spreading out those names in terms of who's capable of winning a stage.
Yeah, it's fantastic, isn't it? And many people might say that Alex Rouleau, the stage that he won was only a super special stage. And yeah, that's obviously clear to see. But you've still got to drive the stage. Doesn't matter what car you're in, you've still got to have that ability to set the fastest time. And any time that you come up and you beat a Harry Bates, a Nathan Quinn, or a Lewis Bates, you're going really well. And I think Alex is so raw as far as a rally driver goes at the moment. He will only get better with speed over the coming season. And yeah, we're not going to see the best from him this year. That's quite clear because of his inexperience. But another 12 months or 2 years in that car, and yeah, he could be anything.
We know rallying's an experience game, that's for sure. The ARC control tyre tender is over. Well, it's not over per se. The ARC and Motorsport Australia have received all their applications for the control tyre next year. We've done some digging over the past few days, talking to some people about where that's at the minute. We know of at least 2 manufacturers who've submitted tenders, and we believe there's a number more. Peter, you've done some of the calling. Can you add to some of that in terms of the comments that you've received?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to Adrian Coppin, who's the ARC commercial manager yesterday, or the ARC manager, I should say. He was obviously very tight-lipped about it. He wouldn't tell me when the decision was going to be made, other than that it hasn't been made yet. He wouldn't tell me how many manufacturers had actually submitted tenders. But from our research, we believe that there's at least 2 well-known brands that have put in tenders, and we'll have some stories coming up on that in the next few days. And even a potential really left field tyre supplier that we're still following up on, who may be involved. So there's lots to play out there, and there's talk that the decision may be announced before Rally Queensland, which is towards the end of July. What are we now? That's still a couple of months away. So I would expect that will still be the case. But yeah, let's wait and see on that.
It's a nice gap to be able to slot in a big news announcement like that. So with everything completed in terms of applications, the decision has just got to be made by the people within the ARC and at Motorsport Australia.
And it's always good to see different brands out there. You've only got to look at the European Rally Championship event last weekend, and there was 3 tyre manufacturers who were pushing for victory. There was Michelin, Pirelli and MRF, and also Hankook, who was running on the junior ERC cars. And probably surprisingly to many people, it was the MRF tyre that came out on top, and Hayden Paddon had a puncture on the last day on his Pirelli. So it just goes to show that when there's different tyre manufacturers at play, a bit like different car manufacturers, it does make it a little bit more interesting.
You spoke about the ARC there. Hayden got a second place finish again. He's finished no lower than second thus far on the 3 European Championship rounds, and his lead is almost double after the event in Poland. He's about 85 points. The next best is in the 40s. So he's got a nice clear lead, and he's still able to drop around, which is really good.
Yeah, he's done well, and he had 3 events in 3 weekends. He went from, if I'm trying to remember now, was it the tarmac event in the Canary Islands, back to New Zealand for the Rally of Whangarei, and back to Europe again for the Rally Poland. And I think I saw on social media this morning that he's been testing the Hyundai Rally 2 car again for Hyundai Motorsport. So he's pretty busy.
He must like getting on airplanes, must be said. Or he must just like driving rally cars, because he's got to get on that plane to go and drive rally cars, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, maybe he's got a good sleep pattern on airplanes, and the time goes pretty quick. Who knows?
Yeah, well, as I spoke to Dale Moscott last fortnight on the podcast, he's got it down to a T. He understands that when he gets on a plane, it's just about sleep time, and he's got all the routines down pat. So a case of, if you've got the experience, you know the best way to do it. Martin Sesks as well was very impressive, out of the blocks very fast, and continued to get faster and faster over the weekend. It must be something about those fast European gravel rallies that he just gels with.
Yeah, and he's a guy that I think he's 25 years old, and a guy that probably most of us haven't heard much about, given that he does most of his rallying in the ERC and hasn't done a lot of World Championship stuff. But gee, if you can drive that sort of speed on fast gravel roads, you can only imagine what he might be able to do in the WRC. So let's follow his career a bit more closely, I reckon.
That's right. And he's a Latvian, of course, and he's got his home World Rally Championship event coming up next year when they join the championship in 2024. I've read some things about him looking to get into a Rally 1 car for that event. So you look at his speed on fast gravel. Latvia is fast gravel. And I think in the ERC round last year, he won every single stage. It was crazy. He won every single stage of his home European Rally Championship event. So he's got the speed, and maybe he's a dark horse for the Hyundai drive, but
Well,
we'll cool the jets on that.
who knows? But I mean, if he's not in a Rally 1 car for his home WRC event when they make their debut, there's something seriously wrong. So yeah, we're talking a long way ahead here. But if he got some decent testing in a Rally 1 car before that event, who knows what he could do?
Mm. The hot tip for the Hyundai drive is Timo Sunonen, the former M Sport driver and a man who's been in their Rally 2 program for a number of years now. He's the clear favourite. In my opinion, I'm not sure he's the right way to go, but there's other guys out there. They've tried Oliver Solberg. Whether they go back to him or not, I don't know. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, and we read this week that Andreas Mikkelsen had the Hyundai third seat pretty much signed, sealed, and delivered. Sorry, the second seat signed, sealed, and delivered for this year until Esa-Pekka Lappi decided to leave Toyota and grab that seat. So Mikkelsen is always there, isn't he? I mean, he's a two-time WRC event winner with Volkswagen, 3 times. So yeah, he's certainly a guy who can do the job. He's been a bit absent from events this year simply because he missed out on the Hyundai drive, and because of he was waiting on that drive, he also missed out on the TalkSport Skoda drive in the WRC2 series. So Mikkelsen's there. There's also Emma Lindholm, who's done really well, the current WRC2 champion. Yeah, I'm a bit like you, Luke. I'm not sure about Sunonen. He left M Sport after not performing all that well. Yeah, well, let's wait and see. But they've got a bit of time, I guess, until Rally Estonia in about, probably 6 or 8 weeks' time. And yeah, they've taken a long time to make this decision after the passing of Craig Breen.
We've put an article up on the website today, which is Thursday as we record this. Adrian Stratford, his injuries are healing well, and he's working on a Fiesta G4 car. Can you tell me a bit more about that one?
Yeah, I chatted to Stratty yesterday, and the injuries of both he and co-driver Kane Manning are healing pretty well. They're both, well, Adrian's in a back brace still. Kane's just got off his walking stick, so they're coming along pretty well. They're slow injuries from that crash at the Mid-Mountain Rally back in March. But yeah, he's well underway with the new Ford Fiesta G4 that's got Evo 10 Mitsubishi Lancer running gear in it. He's hoping to have that debuted at the Gippsland Rally, which is the Victorian ARC round in August. Still a bit to go there, and whether that comes off remains to be seen. But he was relatively confident. But as you say, yeah, full story is up on the website today, and we go into some detail about the spec of the car and what they're expecting from it. So that's a good story.
Before we head into Max McRae, we'll sort of cover off a little bit on his weekend in the European Rally Championship. As we mentioned earlier, the juniors are on the Hankook tyres, a bit of a different brand that we haven't seen in Australia for quite some time. I don't know when the year might have been that we last saw Hankooks, Peter, but maybe in the early 2000s, perhaps?
Yeah, you're probably right, Luke. I mean, I'm not even close to knowing when that was, but yeah, there's certainly a brand that hasn't been around for quite some time. But once again, like in a junior championship like that, I guess at that level, if it is a one-make tyre, everybody's on the same tyre. So it doesn't matter whether it's a good tyre, bad tyre, or indifferent tyre, everybody's on the same thing. And provided it's reliable enough and not puncturing for the guys, I think it's an even playing field.
And he had some electrical dramas where the car would simply cut out during the event. He lost minutes at a time when he had to reset the car, and it really just put paid to a positive weekend for him. His pace wasn't there on the Saturday because he was struggling to get to grips with the car a little bit. But once he changed some setup things on the car, he was much quicker on the Sunday and was able to take some positives. So yeah, I really enjoyed chatting to him, and yeah, it's a guy people have heard from a lot on social media, but perhaps they haven't heard him speak too much about how he's going across in Scotland and the program that's coming up for him this year.
I think in Australia here, and because Max is a Western Australian, We probably don't actually realise how big the McRae name is in the UK. Just last night, I was reading the latest issue of the British Motorsport newspaper, and the whole front page story was about Max McRae competing in the ERC. There was an editorial on page 3 about Max McRae. There was a news story or two in the news section. There's a story about Max McRae doing the Jim Clark rally this weekend. So the Brits are so enthralled by the McRae name and by what Max might be able to do. It's fantastic, and let's just hope that that pressure of all this coverage over there, particularly given that Max is now living in Scotland, doesn't overwhelm him, and that he can still perform at the level that we know that he can.
Without further ado, we'll move on to Max McRae, and until next fortnight, we'll keep our ears on the ground for any rally news, and we'll keep you up to date on the RallySport magazine website. So grab a subscription and keep following all the news across the rallying world.
Good on you, Luke. And yeah, thanks to everybody for listening into the podcast. We've had some good feedback over the last couple of weeks about the chats we're having. So we look forward to continuing it into the future.
Max McRae, welcome along. It's been a busy weekend for you, and you're just back from Poland, back at home in Scotland. It's your new home. How are things going?
Yeah, so just back from the first round of the junior campaign in Poland. It was a bit of a long weekend and a bit of a frustrating one, but back home in sunny Scotland now. So yeah, let's get the jumpers and trackies back on.
Polar opposites, Western Australia and Scotland. What is life like in Scotland? It's a bit colder, I would assume. Of course, it'd be colder than Western Australia, but are you settling in okay?
Yeah, so far it's been good, and just been settling in and just finding stuff to keep me entertained. I've got my simulator over here, so that's been good, and just other small things. But the weather's actually not been too bad. It's actually been quite good to me. So maybe I've brought some of the West Australian weather with me.
Maybe you have. And the Forest Rally in Western Australia was at the weekend, of course. You wouldn't have had time over the ERC weekend to catch up, but have you caught up since the end? You're obviously your home ARC.
Yeah, I mean, I was just keeping an eye on social media over the weekend and just seeing how everyone was going, and I saw that Harry team had a couple of dramas, and Quinny ended up with the win on the heat too. So seems like an interesting weekend from that side, but yeah, I'm sure everyone did a great job.
Before I talk about the ERC last weekend, I want to go back a little bit further. Tell me about your season in Australia last year, of course, in the Maximum Motorsport Subaru. It was donned up in beautiful colours. Did you enjoy being part of the ARC, and what did you learn last year from that experience?
Yeah, of course, enjoyed it, and the car was definitely in some cool colours, and definitely some nostalgia. Being McRae name on those colours and patterns, so that was very cool. And I think had a good team and did as much as we could, but of course, we had some dramas over the year, but I mean, you kind of expect that a lot of the time with rallying, but yeah, we did what we could and fought as much as we could, and yeah, we didn't do bad, so we got some wins and had some ups and downs, but yeah, enjoyed the ARC. It was a good step before coming to Europe. Obviously, it's a lot bigger than just doing WA Championship, and the competition was definitely high for me as being in a group and kind of Subaru against the AP4s, because I was always looking at the outright times, but so that was quite good. And yeah, it was definitely a good learning experience, especially being in an all-wheel drive car for a season and then coming back to the front-wheel drive. Definitely teaches you a lot.
And what also teaches people a lot, I think, is the amount of different style of events that you get in Australia. One Australian Rally Championship round is going to be completely different to another one. Coffs Harbour is completely different to the Forest Rally, as is South Australia and the Adelaide Hills Rally. That tends to keep people in good stead when they go overseas. Did you find that? And did you find that you were learning things very, very fast?
Yeah, I think it did prepare yourself for the rallies in Europe, as I think that's kind of the main goal of doing it. But especially on the trickier rallies like Coffs, we didn't get to do Canberra, which would have been good to do that. But yeah, a trickier rally like Coffs with all those bumps and little shitty things. But
Yeah.
yeah, that really teaches you to just like have your notes right and just really describe the road. And I think Coffs was a massive step in my pace notes last year, and I can also thank Bill Hayes a lot because he was in the car with us on recce helping out a lot. So that was really, really helpful, and that was definitely probably the biggest step I've had in my driving was Coffs Harbour weekend, and then that's carried on to these events this year.
Great to hear. In terms of those notes, you just mentioned you made steps with them. Have you based those on, for example, your dad's notes, Alice's notes, or have you gone with your own style in terms of how you like them read back to you on a stage?
Dad helped me a lot with starting off writing them at the start, which was just like the 1 to 6, but obviously they weren't very good at the start, but they've improved a lot. And Dad actually uses descriptors, so he's medium left, medium right, fast right. So it's very different. But he's got the experience. He can swap between each one, and he helped teach. And then I also had Billy in the car for the first 2 seasons while COVID was on, kind of, and we couldn't find a co-driver, and that was a huge help. So yeah, not really describe. It's more on my own now, but at the start, it was definitely Dad telling me what to do because it's quite hard to start off your pace notes by yourself. But yeah, now it's kind of I do add my own things, and it's definitely how I would write it instead of someone else. So it is, yeah, they have definitely improved a lot.
Learning all the time, which is what you want. Fresh from Rally Poland, of course, you've just got home last night. It's morning in Scotland. In a nutshell, how do you describe the event? Before we hit record, you mentioned some of the electrical troubles that were rearing their heads, throughout the weekend. How do you describe it? Was it a tough one?
It was, yeah, for sure a tough event, but I think even without the electrical problems, it would have been a tough event. Like there was 15 juniors started, I think 8 or 9 finished, so it was tough, and the conditions were really hard on the small front wheel drive car. So it was definitely a finishers event. Pretty much on the second passes, it was just dragging the sump guard on the ruts and massive stones, and it was pretty tricky. It was a lot of mechanical sympathy for the weekend. So we did what we could, and we put some good times out there as well. So it's always good to see, and it's good to see that before going into Leipzig in 3 weeks, I think.
It's coming up very quickly. It's a very similar event to what Poland is, and you're going to see those ruts again. Do you know much about Leipzig other than the fact that it's very, very fast?
I've heard that it actually doesn't cut up at all, apart from some slower corners. It's
Okay.
very, very hard surface, and it's like a kind of like a marble on the top. So it takes a long time to sweep the line. But obviously, if you go off that line, then that's at that speed, that's pretty much you done for the rally. So it'll be tricky, but we're optimistic, and we're showing that the pace is there for in Poland. So see what we can do and try and get some more points for the championship.
In terms of tyres, Hankook Tyres is the manufacturer for the junior ERC. How did you find them at the weekend? They're sort of a tyre brand that we haven't seen much of here in Australia for quite a while. How were they on that first test and that first
It
rally,
was
of course?
actually, yeah, it was actually everyone was quite impressed for how well they performed and how strong they are. The biggest thing, they're really strong. I think last year there was a lot of punctures in junior ERC, and this year I think not many punctures. We didn't get any, and then the front runners didn't get any either. And the stages were quite rough and big impact, so it was quite good. They're very strong, and it showed that it gives you good confidence. So the grip's there as well.
Yeah.
So they've done a good job with developing this new tire, and have definitely got no doubts that there'll be any problems with them for this season.
And this weekend you're doing the British Rally Championship round, the Jim Clark. Are you
Yep.
going to use Hankook tyres on that and get a feel for those on tarmac?
Yeah, we're gonna try the Hancooks just to give us a bit of an idea. So hopefully they're as good as the gravel ones were, and we'll get a feel. Also, the first time we'll be in the Opal and on tarmac, and it's actually the first time the Opal's been in the UK, so that's quite cool. So we'll try to put a good result in and learn a lot about the car on tarmac, and we'll just keep chipping away.
in terms of a Rally 4 car, you've got the most experience in a Ford. You've also driven the Peugeot and now, of course, the Opel. How do they all compare to each other? They're built to the same regulations, but are there slight differences that make them easier or harder to drive?
There's always little things like suspension setups and all that. So just more preference to the driver mainly, but they're all pretty similar. Honestly, they're different engines, different chassis, but they're all built to the same regulations, like you said. So they're all quite similar, and it showed that on the at the rally on the weekend that they're all capable of being up in the top five. So the Peugeot and the Opel are pretty much the exact same car, so there's not a big difference in them. And obviously the Renault won the rally, so the biggest difference is the Renault, and that's got the four-cylinder engine, but it's still built to the same horsepower and torque. So it's not a big difference between the cars, which is good. Gives you a nice level playing field.
And the Racing Factory, I believe, is the team that you're driving this year. How were they at the first event? I'm sure they would have been very accommodating of a young Australian to come over there and be part of their team.
Yeah, they were very welcoming. It's like a big family, honestly. It's very cool to be in such a professional and well-run team. So I'm sure we'll work really well in the rest of the season and hopefully in the near to far future. And yeah, we'll keep chipping away with them, and we're learning more about each other and more about the team, how it works. So I think it's only up from here with the team.
And they run Miko Häkkinen, is that right, in the European Championship as well?
Yeah, they run him too, and also Armindo Araujo, who's he's six-time Portuguese champion. So
yeah,
they run him in the Portuguese Championship.
Were you able to learn much from Miko at the weekend? I know it's completely different cars, of course, but you're doing the same stages and doing the recce, I assume, together and catching up at times during the weekend.
I think it was quite difficult because there's so many cars, and he was up at the front. We were kind of mid, so it was quite difficult to talk to him. But when we did, it was good. He was just sharing us his feedback of what he thought and what we thought, and it was quite similar. It was just stages are rough and just get to the finish. So I think he had a decent rally and he put some good time. Same with us, but I think we're both wanting a bit more. So hopefully we can do that for the team.
You take the good with the bad, I guess, and it's really only the first event as well. You've got plenty to learn and plenty to go with. What is one thing, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but what's one thing, I guess, that you take from Poland that you're going to be able to implement moving forward of a learning?
I think the main thing is just that the pace is there. Especially with the competition so high, we weren't sure where we'd sit. I think we knew we'd be quick, but the boys there are quick and they've done the rally multiple times. Like the guy that won the rally is on his 10th season of junior ERC, which is absolutely mental. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot of driving compared to me. So I think it's a big relief to show that we're able to run top three once we've got the confidence in the car and that's it's not cutting out on us mid stage. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Just shows that we're on the pace.
The Jim Clark rally is this weekend. We sort of mentioned it briefly before. It's a very famous event, and your dad would have done it a few times, I can imagine. Tell me a bit about the event for those that might not know about it.
Yeah, so it's run out of the Duns area, and it's in Scotland. That is, so it's not far from here, a couple of hour, I think. So that'll be nice. I don't have to get on a plane, and it'll be cool to get back into the into the British Rally Championship and see where we've improved compared to last year when we got third in Nicky Grist. So hopefully we can improve on that a bit and see where we end up. But it's quite a tricky rally with the starts at night in the dark in the Scottish lanes. So it's quite fast, very twisty with some jumps. So I think it'll be vital to get the notes right for a first time doing the event. So, but I think we'll be okay.
And particularly at night. Have you done any stuff at night before?
Adelaide Super Special.
Yeah. Yeah. Not sure that counts in terms of stage rallying.
No, no, I don't think. I think we've done some small stuff in WA Championship, but not properly at night. So it will be. I'm actually quite looking forward to it. So yeah, I think it would be really cool to do some rallying at night. I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the BRC events are quite short. Is this one pretty short as well?
Yeah, starts the Friday night, obviously, and then all Saturday. So it's not a massive event, but I think it's enough for us to get enough idea on the car and what it's going to do on tarmac, because that's the main thing. We're just doing a bit of testing for the tarmac ERC rounds. So that's the main goal, and it's a bit less pressured of an event. So we'll enjoy it and see where we end up.
You mentioned pressure there. As a McRae, growing up in a rallying family and going over and doing junior ERC and the British Rally Championship, has it always been your dream to go over to Europe to do this and to go and drive in these events and see how far you can get?
Yeah, definitely. It's been looking up to that for a long time, and even we've always talked about it, and I've always been watching these types of events. So it's very cool to actually be on the start lines of one of them. So yeah, that's quite cool, and we'll keep going. So hopefully we can get a bit further and hopefully be on the WRC soon.
Absolutely. There was talk of Junior World Championship last year. Is that still something that's clearly in your head? And I guess the steps to get there, Junior ERC, and then whatever follows for next year and the year after?
Yeah, well, I mean, the prize for the Junior ERC is a drive in Junior WRC. So that would be quite nice to get that, since the main reason we couldn't get to the Junior WRC this year is because of budget. That would help us out a lot. So yeah, we'll see how the year goes. But yeah, definitely, I think next year would be cool to get into the world stages, whether it's for a full championship or just some selected events. But it would be cool just to see how everything's run and yeah, just more experience, I guess.
And for the World Rally Championship, you see a lot of the guys in the junior category. They've done the events before and they know the stages, like you've experienced at the weekend in Poland. There are guys at the front of the field that know the stages and they can almost drive them with their eyes closed. They know them that well. It's experience that's vital.
Yeah, it's quite tricky having boys that have done the events in the other years before. But I mean, it's even better that we can run up with them on our first event, and then plus we only got 10 kilometers testing in the car before Poland. So pretty much the first day was literally just trying to get the setup right for the stages, and we did by the end of the day, and then the end of the Sunday we were up in the top 3 on the first time in Poland. So can't complain at all, really. And it was a tough weekend, obviously, but there's so many positives and so much learning to take away from it.
Another young Aussie, Taylor Gill's in Europe as well at the minute. You know him quite well, of course. You competed against each other last year. Do you have plans to catch up with him at some point during the European summer while he's over there?
Yeah, I think I'd like to go over and watch the WRC Finland, and I think we'd definitely catch up then. Might stay with him, so that'd be cool. And he's on his own adventure as well, so he's cracking along with the Rally Star program, which is good to see. It's good to see another Aussie, yeah, trying to get it to the WRC, and I think he's definitely got the talent there. So it'd be good to compete against him again and see how we go.
Who knows? You might meet again in the JWRC next year. That's the perfect storm.
Possibly.
Max, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Good luck for the Jim Clark this weekend, and look forward to catching up with some more good results as the year goes on.
Thank you. Hopefully I can tell you about the good results next time.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.